Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is the best professional wrestling podcast from pillar to post, Petree's Pit. I'm your host, Ray Petree, joined once again by my co-host, my tag team partner, the Arn Anderson to my Tully Blanchard, JDO Double G. How's it going, brother?
Going good, going good. It's another
Um,
exciting show today.
we do have an exciting show. We have a lot to talk about. Before we get into it, please follow us on Twitter, Blue Sky, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment. Let us know what you think about the show, what we talked about today, if we're right, if we're wrong. Um, with that out of the way, this is episode 13 of Petree's Pit. What are we talking about today, Jordan?
Well, today we are going to talk about Raw on Netflix.
What?
Talk about The Rock coming back.
What?
We got Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa.
What?
Got John Cena retirement tour.
What?
We got Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan.
What?
Punk versus Rollins,
What?
and a whole hell of a lot more.
I hate the what chant.
It's
I don't know why the fans still do it. Um,
one of those things, man. Just once it started, it's not going to stop.
no, no. Last week we previewed Raw's debut on Netflix. Today we're reviewing it. Where do we begin, Jordan?
Well, first, start off with, um, I guess overall, how did you feel about the show? Now, obviously, we'll get into detail about specific things that happened, but the overall feel of the show, was it a good show? Was it everything that you thought it was going to be? The way they hyped it up? What are your overall feelings on it?
I don't think I can't imagine we're going to be previewing an episode of Raw again anytime soon, which speaks to the level of excitement we had for this show. This had more than a premium live event level of build. This was highly anticipated. On paper, it looked like a really stacked show. Um, and you could argue this is the most important episode of Raw ever, maybe other than the show's debut, because you're trying to reach a whole new audience. And they did. I mean, the reports are sort of conflicting because of the nature of Netflix's uh ratings and how people watch the show. But we're millions of people watch this show and ostensibly have watched it since the initial ratings came out. It was produced well. I mean the production value was insane. This was a beautiful show. Um, no problems on the streaming. We watched it together, which we don't do often for Raw. Um, I think definitely for the casual fan, I think this was a good jumping off point. And I think in terms of the bottom line, this was a good show. There was more good than there was bad. What about you, Jordan?
Uh, I don't know. I kind of feel the opposite. I feel like, obviously the production was crazy. We all knew it was going to be crazy. Um, but for me, kind of the way that they hyped this show up, I felt like it fell a little flat as far as some of the things that happened. No real big surprises happened. I mean, obviously you had Taker come out, which everybody, kind of thought was going to happen. You thought you were going to have some people show up, but as far as the matches and the people involved and what happened, I thought it was, and maybe this was by design, but I thought it was, a lot left on the table that we could have done. I thought the stuff with The Rock, Cody, and Roman, that whole, what'll he be involved in, which we will, we'll get into. But I thought that fell a little flat. I thought, nothing of real substance really happened. And I feel like for as much as they hyped this show up to be like a PLE level show, I thought that, it was just kind of a super, roided up version of Raw. That's really the way I took what I took from it.
You remember when we were younger and they did the Raw Super shows?
Oh God, yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, this seemed like what that was marketed as. Like this was a Raw Super show.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I mean, it was definitely. I mean, there's big stars there. They pretty much made a point to show all of the major players in the company, the big wrestlers, even people who didn't wrestle, but they made a point to show them. But yeah, just for as what much as they hyped this thing up, it wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be.
Um, Not just to recap the show, I'm going somewhere with this, but the show opened with a cold open, introducing the history of professional wrestling. Obviously, this was marketed towards the layman, someone who has not watched wrestling or is not very familiar with wrestling, doesn't know the intricacies of it. And it was kind of played over this curtain surrounding the ring. They dropped the ring. Triple H is, introduced his Monday Night Raw on Netflix, the debut episode, and how big this is for the company and the business. And then The Rock comes out, and The Rock, I mean, was being presented as the final boss, but didn't act like the final boss. He was definitely playing a babyface, to use insider baseball terms. Do you think this was because they didn't want The Rock to come? I mean, if you haven't watched wrestling before, you probably know The Rock. I mean, he's, the biggest actor alive, arguably. Do you think they did that because they knew new people were watching? They didn't want him to come off as being antagonistic, or I mean, that's the sense I got. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the thing with The Rock and the pretty much the entirety of the show was basically it was built towards the casual fan,
Hmm.
the people that they want to try to hook on this show, like not people like you and me,
Hmm.
who we've watched wrestling for, since we were kids. We know all about how things work. We watch WWE, we watch AEW, New Japan. We know all about that stuff, and we kind of follow the week to week happenings of wrestling. And for us, it was kind of like we're wondering what's going on. But if you're a casual viewer who doesn't really follow it very very closely, you're going to see, oh, it's The Rock. The Rock's being The Rock. He's
Hmm.
being the people's champion. You see Roman Reigns, and you see John Cena, and you see Rhea Ripley, and those are the biggest stars in the company. They're the most visual stars. Um, so that I think might have contributed a little bit to why, as far as progressing storylines and setting things up, they really didn't do that because it was just a general introducing WWE and Raw to the casual fan and trying to hook them for future episodes on Netflix.
Um, The Rock, you know, really didn't acknowledge anything he's done in the last year and change. He complimented Cody Rhodes, who was not really involved in the show. He was in the audience, but complimented Cody Rhodes as a WWE champion for waving the flag, being a great um, spokesman of the company. Mentioned his cousin Roman Reigns, who obviously for the last 5 years now has really been anchoring the WWE. Um, and just kind of used his charisma and his status in Hollywood to introduce a show. This was in Los Angeles at the Intuit Dome, home of the Los Angeles Clippers. Um, how do you? I mean, like we just said, obviously, this was geared towards the casual wrestling fan. And I mean, listen, when we were growing up and you're getting into wrestling, it's hard. Like there's a lot that you need to know to understand what's going on at a deep level, on a significant level. I like that this kind of played to people who don't watch wrestling in a way. I mean, it's tough for us because obviously we're wondering why isn't The Rock being a heel right now? Um, do you I guess here's my question. Just to get to the bottom line here. Is The Rock going to be wrestling at WrestleMania, or was this also his way of just saying, I'm not really going to be involved in this anytime soon?
Well, if you'd asked me after, like immediately after the show, I would have said no. It doesn't seem like he's going to be. But then he shows up on NXT
Mhm.
the next night and pretty much says that you know, I'm the, he acknowledges the internet's reaction to what he said and what he did, and it's basically like I'm the final boss. I'm always thinking 20 steps ahead. So sit back and enjoy the ride that I'm taking you on. Uh, which would lead me to believe that I feel like he probably will. I can't imagine that they would build things up the way they did last year with him and Cody and him and Roman, uh, having him wrestle last year. I can't imagine that he wouldn't wrestle on the show.
Hmm.
I know that obviously things this year are going to be pretty heavily focused on Cena and his retirement tour, but you know, I don't think that means you just discard everything that The Rock did last year
Right.
and how great it was with him, doing the final boss thing, him being involved in two, major storylines with two of the biggest, if not the two biggest stars in the company with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. I don't think you just throw that aside because you don't want to overshadow Cena. Um, so I feel like he will be involved somehow, some way. He'll be involved with either Cody or Roman going forward. I'm just not sure which way they're going to go with it, but the NXT promo he did would lead me to believe that he is going to be involved in something.
Um, that promo transitioned right into the next or the first match of the night. And I mean, at this point, we're 30 minutes into the show after the entrances. We're like 40 minutes in, is that right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa, Tribal Combat. The winner would walk away with the Ulafala and be, the real tribal chief. Solo Sikoa's been on a journey the last year. They've really tried to build him as one of the top heels of the company. He's main evented a few premium live events, including SummerSlam, which is one of the biggest shows of the calendar year for the WWE. Um, last week you expected this match to be the main event of the show. It opened it essentially as the opening match. What did you think about the match, the aftermath, and the implications going forward for Solo?
Well, I thought that the match it kind of went like you expect these tribal combat matches to go. A lot of craziness happened, fighting outside on the floor, weapons getting involved, like 5 to 10 different people getting involved in the match. Um, it went how these matches have gone, which people, seem to really enjoy them. I enjoy them. There's a lot of
Yeah.
chaos going on, but it's cool to see, different people getting involved and all of that. I mean, I wasn't surprised that Roman won. Uh, it kind of seemed like that was where things were heading. Um, for me, though, I kind of feel like you've been building Solo Sikoa up as this equal force to Roman Reigns, the guy who's vying for the to be the tribal chief, the head of his bloodline with
Mhm.
the Tongas and Jacob Fatu, and now he's lost again to Roman Reigns. Um, to me, it would seem like this is going to send him down the card, kind of push him to the background,
Mhm.
uh, especially with what we just talked about with The Rock potentially being involved in something with him. Um, it to me it was kind of counterproductive to what they've been doing with Solo. Now maybe they have big plans for him after this, but you would think, I mean, like Solo said after Mania last year, losing has consequences.
Mhm.
And you would think that with the way that they've uh, hyped this bloodline up with Fatu and the Tongas, that they're not going to be happy with the fact that he lost to Roman. And I remember telling, I believe it was one of the Tongas, that if Roman Reigns got the Ulufala back, the title of tribal chief, that you are going to acknowledge him if he does that,
Mhm.
and he's now done that. So um, we'll see how that whole thing goes with the bloodline, with Roman Reigns, with the OG bloodline. But to me, I kind of thought it didn't help Solo any.
Yeah.
And like we said, it didn't really go anywhere. You had uh, The Rock come out after the match, and you're kind of like, okay, something's gonna happen now. He's gonna, you know, go in for the hug and hit him with the rock bottom. And something like that. I mean, I think I even said that to you while we were watching that I felt like something was going to happen, and it didn't. He put the Ulafala on him and stood back in the corner. So, you know, there's definitely different things they could do, but I feel like it wasn't helpful to Solo to lose that match.
Um, Solo, I've never been convinced. We've talked about it on the show. I've never been convinced of Solo's ability to be in the main event picture. I don't think he's ready yet. I think if you look at the WWE roster right now, there are just too many guys who are not only more experienced, but just quite frankly better in the ring, better on the microphone, um, more believable main event players. Now that said, you bring up a good point. Will Tama Tonga and Tongaloa and Jacob Fatu continue to see Solo Sikoa as their tribal chief, or will they acknowledge Roman Reigns? That all that being said, there's intrigue there, right? Which will probably lead into SmackDown. He'll probably return to SmackDown and kind of continue telling that story. But is it a fate worse than death to now be in that picture with either Shinsuke Nakamura or Braun Breaker, challenge for the United States or the Intercontinental title? I think that's on the table for him at WrestleMania, maybe. And is that a bad spot to be in for him? I mean, I think for where he's at as a wrestler in terms of what he brings to the table, I think that's his ceiling right now, and there's nothing wrong with that in my mind. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be tough it'd be a little bit of a step down, but um, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something you could do, but I don't know. I feel like if he's as much stock as they've been putting into him to have him, to throw him back down into the mid card would just be a little crazy. Um, but yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't really make sense to me to do that, but it kind of seems like that might be where it's heading.
The Rock, like you said, Paul Heyman was holding Ulafala during the match. The Rock came down to the ring, took it from Paul Heyman, put it on Roman Reigns's over his shoulders. Now, there's also this kind of underlying sentiment here that, yeah, you're the tribal chief, but I'm the high chief. They've mentioned that multiple times. And in real life, he was crowned the high chief by the king of Samoa. So I mean, there's real life, real life bleeding into the kayfabe world of wrestling. But do you think The Rock sees himself as being higher than the tribal chief, that he's above that? Um, is that the sentiment they're trying to portray, or do you think um The Rock's just trying to get his shit in? You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, they've kind of, I feel like over the past, since Triple H has taken over, they've kind of made a point to throw those little Easter eggs in there
mhm.
for the fans to kind of, you know, clue in on. And uh, I don't think that he would mention that multiple times and make a point of that to kind of, for no reason.
Right.
Now maybe he's just trying to, hype himself up. It wouldn't be a surprise if he was, but um, it's hard to say because and on one hand, he's kind of made a point to acknowledge the tribal chief is a very important figure in the Samoan family.
Hmm.
Um, but again, I don't think they would make a point to mention the high chief thing if they weren't going to use that at some point down the line. And like Rock said, he's thinking 20 steps ahead. So I feel like that'll probably come into play at some point, um, in this story about who's in charge of this group of ever growing group of Samoans they have running around WWE.
Um, I want to skip ahead a little bit. I want to stick with wrestling in the ring, Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan. This was for the Women's World Championship. Um, Liv Morgan being the champion, Rhea Ripley being the challenger. This story's been going on, feels like ad infinitum forever now. Um, we've both expressed our fatigue and how we wish someone else would be in that picture with the champion. Rhea Ripley beat Liv Morgan like I predicted last week. It was a competitive match. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed, I think it was on our star rating scale, I would consider it good. I would give it 3 stars, maybe three and a quarter. Um, After the match, Dominic Mysterio tried to reconcile with Rhea Ripley. He got kicked in the groin. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if he's out until after WrestleMania. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, it looked pretty nasty.
Yeah.
Um, Thoughts on the match, the outcome, long-term implications for the Judgment Day and Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio. What are your thoughts?
Uh, well, for the match, like you said, it was a good match. Nothing special, nothing spectacular. Um, I feel like it was a result that was expected. Um, obviously I like Rhea a lot, but I like what Liv's been doing too with the title. I thought she's improved a lot,
Mhm.
um, and she's really kind of established herself as as somebody you could believe is a main event woman in this company, a believable champion. Even though she's smaller, um, but she leaned into that heel thing a lot, and I know a lot of people have liked her run. I would have liked to have seen it continue a little bit. I know I said last week that I kind of would have liked to see, Liv wrestle some other people like she did with Io Sky on Saturday night's main event. Thought that was a great match.
Mhm. Yeah.
And Rhea obviously having been around the SmackDown Women's Championship when she won it from Charlotte, and then it transitioning into the Women's World Championship. She's been involved in that picture the entire time. So you know, while it makes sense that they're going to make Rhea the champion again because she is the face of the women's division in WWE, no question.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
she's the most popular woman there. She constantly gets those big reactions, and they're going to lean into that. Um, and it'll be nice to see her wrestle different people. Hopefully down the line. Obviously, Charlotte's supposed to come back. Becky's supposed to come back. Bianca is a singles wrestler again. So there's different people you could put her with now. But I think it would have been nice to have seen Liv hold the title and Rhea go on to, face somebody else in a you know, non-title feud.
Mhm.
But like we said, Rhea's the face of the women's division. She's gonna be the champion, and it was expected. It was what I expected to happen. And obviously, good for her, good for the company, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I think this was the perfect platform for Rhea Ripley to recapture that title because she is the face of the women's division. I think if you were to put one woman out there as the top, women's champion, top women's wrestler of the company on Netflix, Rhea Ripley's the woman you would choose. She's the biggest star in the division. Um, I just for transparency's sake, I don't care about the Judgment Day. I don't care about Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio's relationship. But a lot of people do. A lot of, I'm assuming, younger fans. I can't imagine any adult finds this interesting. I mean, you look online, I feel like there are many teenagers who believe this more than people believed wrestling was real, like in the 80s or the 70s. Like, there are some kids that really think they're in a relationship and have invested themselves in this, storyline with them. Um, Dominic Mysterio finding a way to get his shit in as a heel in this match that really, I mean, obviously he's sort of at the center of it, but it's more so the title now than him. And, he walked away. Well, I don't know if he walked, maybe he limped away from this,
Yeah.
looking like a really great heel. You think he's getting kicked out of the Judgment Day? You think Liv Morgan's leaving the Judgment Day? How does this continue from here?
Well, I feel like the Judgment Day has been irrelevant for a little while now. I mean, you figure Rhea obviously no longer part of it, Damien no longer a part of it, and they were the two people in that group who are kind of the main event players right now. Um,
Oh,
they've been teasing tension with uh within the Judgment Day, and it seems like they're gonna split up. And I mean they should. At this point, I don't know. There's nothing really going on with that group.
Right.
Damian is he is he's facing Finn next or this coming Monday in a street fight. So, we'll see how that feud goes. But yeah, it's the Judgment Day. It's time for them to just to be done. And it as far as where like Liv and Dominic and Raquel go, um, we'll see.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's there's no real clear direction where they're going to go. But like I said, I thought Liv having the title was a good thing for her. It gave her that credibility,
Yeah.
and I thought she kind of needed it more than Rhea does. Because I mean, Rhea's I mean, she's one of the biggest superstars, period, in the company.
Yeah.
I mean, when they promote really anything that they're doing, Rhea's usually involved in it. She's usually up there with Cody and Roman and people like that. She's got her own huge fan base, her huge following, so she doesn't really need the title.
Yeah.
Um, but like I said, it's hard to say. But as far as the Judgment Day, I think they need to disband that. I think that would be good for Finn Balor a lot if they ended the group.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he just tough to say right now. No real clear direction where it's going to go.
I like I like what you said about Finn because, once again, this is something in the Judgment Day going to the forefront that doesn't involve him. And, he's up there and he's 43 years old. He's up there in age. I still think he has all of the tools to be a main event player, to be a world champion. And once again, I feel like he's going to take the back burner to something else in this faction. So like you said, I hope this dissolves and he gets to, move on in a healthier direction because, I know he wants to help JD McDonough find a footing, but that's not going to happen. So, he needs to move on as a singles wrestler and pursue championship gold and be in the thick of things. But um, moving on, John Cena returns to begin his retirement tour. Um, I'm just gonna. I didn't like this promo. I thought it was a little zany. I thought it was a little um, a little contrived. I don't think he played to the crowd. I think the psychology was off. Him acting like he didn't know he could enter the Royal Rumble and earn a title shot despite his poor record. I mean, I liked that he acknowledged it that he hasn't won in. I mean, he said like 2,000 days, didn't he?
Yeah, it was some crazy number that I didn't. I mean, I haven't looked into that, but it feels like it has been a while since he's won.
That's like 7 years. That's like 7 years without a singles win, which I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe it is.
Yeah.
Um, him acting like he didn't know he could enter the Royal Rumble and earn a title shot despite his bad record, I thought was really dumb. What were
Yeah.
your thoughts about this promo and the beginning of his retirement tour?
Uh, well, I mean, it's kind of what I would expect from a Cena promo at this point. It kind of feels like he was channeling his PG era Cena stuff, where he was talking to children,
Yeah,
where he was talking to people who didn't know wrestling, who didn't understand the Royal Rumble and what it like we said before, it feels like this show was pointed to people who don't watch wrestling regularly like you and me.
yeah, okay,
It feels like it was for people who, and I don't know if that's how he intended for it to come off. It kind of felt like it was because we both know he can do great promos.
yeah,
He's one of the the better promo guys in the business. So it feels like he was purposefully doing that to play to the layman, the casual viewer, um, and rather than actual wrestling fans. Because yeah, it if you're listening to it as someone who's watched wrestling since they were a kid, you're like, why is he talking to people like he's five, like they're 5 years old?
yeah.
That's kind of the way it came off. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for his retirement tour. I'm glad that he didn't like. I thought at first he was going to kind of shut the door on a world title run potentially. Um, he was just gonna be like, I'm just gonna wrestle and I'm not gonna go for a title and things like that. But I'm happy to see that he's not closing the door on that. He's leaving that open to happen. And I'm excited for it. Being a Cena fan when I was a kid, it's sad he's gonna be this is his last year, but hopefully it's an epic run. Um, Obviously not to the level of Bryan Danielson because he can't wrestle other places, but within the confines of the WWE, it'll be cool, to see how things play out.
I hadn't thought about that. Maybe he was talking not just to casual wrestling fans, but to children. I hadn't even really considered that.
Yeah.
He was the spokesman of the PG era, the guy that really was geared towards the children. Um, yeah, I guess that's a good point. I hope that's not what his run is long term. I hope that his segments aren't like the segments that like are available for kids on like the kids version of YouTube. I hope that's not the case. Or that he's always kind of directing his content towards children. I hope that's not what this is long term. But I think you're onto something there. I think that's a good point. Um, we talk about wrestling so much. I don't remember if I asked you this question on the podcast or like in my living room, but I remember us talking about is he going to wrestle a match at Royal Rumble or be in the Rumble? And I can't believe I even asked you that question because clearly he's going to be involved in the Rumble. He's one of the all-time great Rumble participants. Um, I guess just outright, I'm going to ask, do you think he's going to win the Rumble?
I mean, I can't imagine that. Well, I think I could see them doing it, but I don't really think that he should
Hmm.
because I don't. I would reserve winning the Rumble for someone who really could use it. Um, and I don't think that John needs to win the Rumble. Like he could, challenge for a title, and it would make perfect sense why. He's one of the all-time greats. This is his last year, and he wants to win a world title. Having said that, if they're from all accounts, he's cleared his schedule. He's going to be a full-time wrestler. He's going to apparently be wrestling at live shows when they start back up. He's all in. So if that's the case, then it's possible they could have him win the Rumble and win a world title potentially. Um, there's other guys I think that could use that type of a spot, but it is John Cena, and it kind of sounded like they were really teasing that it could happen. Um, so I kind of want to lean towards no, just because I feel like that would kind of you know that would give a lot of ammunition to the you know veteran old guys, part timers taking spots away from younger guys. We get back into that conversation again.
Yeah, sure.
Um, which I don't like that type of stuff. I don't think they should do that. But if they're gonna go with Cena being a full time guy, then I think it's entirely possible.
Um, we do a Royal Rumble party at my house every year. Sometimes it's bigger than others, but I always ask people, what's the final four going to be? And I'm not necessarily going to ask you that exactly right now, but do you think he'll be one of the final four participants in the Rumble?
Yeah, I think he'll be a Final Four
Okay.
guy for sure. I don't think that they would have him get eliminated in 10 minutes. I feel
Yeah.
like he might even be number 30. For all I know, I think that'd be probably be best. That I don't know how his wrestling stamina is at this point. He hasn't wrestled really hardly at all.
Right.
So I think that'd be kind of hard for him to come in early. But you never know. I mean, I don't know what kind of shape he's in wrestling wise, but yeah, I feel like he'll be a Final Four guy.
While we're on the subject, I wanted to ask, I was going to ask this at the end of the Raw conversation, but I'll ask it now. A lot of these fake, like leaked Rumble um lineups have been revealed or they've been posted online and I'm assuming they're all fake obviously. I think they're probably all fake, but I've seen a lot of them and it's had a 31st entrant, The Rock. And obviously for those who don't know, there's only 30 um spots in the Rumble. Now, I guess chicken or the egg. I think maybe I think seeing these might give WWE the idea, but do you think The Rock could exercise his creative control and enter the Rumble at 31?
I mean, I would love to see it
That
for
would be
sure. I
awesome, wouldn't
mean,
it?
yeah, I mean, you're always in wrestling, you're always wanting to do something different. You're always wanting to, push the envelope and, do something that's never been done before. And even though they had rumbles that have had 40 people before, but this particular circumstance would be the regular 30-man Royal Rumble match, and then having, I don't know, somebody that makes sense for Rock to screw over and be like, well, the Rumble's not over yet. We've got one more entrant, and The Rock comes out, and he's like, I'm the final boss. I'm the high chief. I got you know whatever. Like I think you said in the NXT promo about his stock or whatever. I've got all that, and I'm putting myself in at number 31, and I don't care if anybody likes it. Doing something like that's the kind of stuff you would expect from this final boss version of The Rock to do. So I would love to see it. I would love to see that happen. I think that would be extremely entertaining.
Could you imagine the last man standing is there and he's waiting to celebrate and that timer starts clocking, like, it's just out of nowhere, apropos of nothing, the timer starts going down and the final boss music hits.
Yeah,
Oh man, that would be a great moment. The final boss doing final boss stuff, like you said, exercising that creative control that, the as a minority owner, I guess, of the company.
yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe he does that, and maybe he screws Cena over.
Yeah, that would be
Cena
something, wouldn't it?
Cena wins the Rumble. You think, oh my God, John Cena's won his last Royal Rumble. The timer starts to clock to tick down. Everybody's confused, and The Rock comes out and he throws Cena over. And Rock's like, I'm going to WrestleMania, and I'm going to take that belt from Cody. And then, down the line, you have a thing where Cena's like, well, before I go, I'm going to get even.
Yeah.
And, we've had two matches where 1-1 we'll have the trilogy, and we'll see how, who wins. So, yeah, I would love to see. I think that would be a great swerve for everybody.
Um, Last match of the show, and then we'll get into some predictions, throw some ideas out there going forward. But CM Punk, Seth Rollins, this was the main event of the show. Um, this is a grudge match. This was supposed to be one of the main events of last year's WrestleMania. Obviously, CM Punk got hurt in the Royal Rumble, couldn't participate in that capacity. They've had a few scathing promos going back and forth over the last few weeks. Seth Rollins really trying to drive home that he has genuine animosity towards CM Punk for CM Punk's departure in 2014. CM Punk thinks Seth Rollins is a company man, a shill, an imposter, not a real main event player, not a real star. Um, and you know, we talked about last week. CM Punk just keeps winning, and Seth Rollins threw some genuine, I think, made some genuinely good points. I think his criticism was valid. CM Punk did leave the company. He did criticize the company and the workers there ad nauseum. And I'm not going to say that was warranted or not. I'm not going to throw my 2 cents in there, but he looks like a hypocrite coming back after all that time and reconciling, with Triple H, who he insulted for years on end. And then he beat Seth Rollins. Um, clean in the ring, 2 GTSs, put him to sleep. What did you think about the match? What would you rate it on a 5-star scale? And what did you think about the finish?
Um, well, I thought for me personally, I was surprised that they were doing this match on Raw, even though it was a big time Raw, obviously the first Raw on Netflix. I think this type of match is a Mania match. It was intended to be a Mania match, um, and I'm assuming that this is not the last time these two will face each other.
Hmm.
So it potentially still could be a Mania match. But yeah, the match itself, it was good, but it wasn't like this all out classic match. Like I think people were kind of expecting these two to put on. Um, and in a sense, I think they're not gonna go all out on a Raw, even though it is a big time Raw show. Um, but I give it probably, I don't know, like a 3 3/4, maybe a 4. I don't even know if I'd go 4. And it's not, not to insult anybody. I think they tempered what they wanted to do because I think they're going to have more matches down the line that I think they're going to actually be at, you premium live events.
Yeah.
Then I think is when they're really gonna go, balls to the walls and really go after it. But I thought Punk winning, it was not unexpected. I think that, you know, Punk has obviously he's been on a roll since he came back from his injury. Um, and if we're looking at these two guys, Punk's the bigger star.
Yeah.
No question. He's the guy. He's a top merch seller. He's every week he goes out, people are chanting his name. He's cutting the great promos. Um, and like I said, this isn't the last time these two are going to have a match together. So Seth will definitely have a chance to get his revenge. And but yeah, I thought it was a great. I thought it was a good match. It was a nothing spectacular, but these two are great wrestlers, and there's history, there's real life beef between the two. Um, and yeah, I mean, it was a good main event for the show.
Yeah, I think I would say in terms of full-time wrestlers, there's three draws that I think conventionally are huge draws in wrestling today, and it's Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, and CM Punk. And that doesn't have to do just with their success in WWE in the case of Rhodes and CM Punk. They've had success elsewhere and put attention on different promotions that would otherwise not have had that attention. And Seth Rollins, look, in terms of in-ring quality, one of the five best guys in the WWE right now. Um, while CM Punk is still good in the ring and can deliver, he carried this match. And for those who don't watch AEW, the finish, CM Punk gave him one GTS. Rollins bounced off the ropes, landed on CM Punk's shoulders, and then he delivered another one. The finish mirrored CM Punk's match against John Moxley at um, I guess it was All Out 2023. No, I'm sorry. All Out 2022, I guess. Um, John Moxley being formerly Dean Ambrose, a member of the Shield. It was the exact same finish to that match. So they're telling a story here. CM Punk beat Seth Rollins the same way he beat Moxley. Um, And I say that because I want to ask you, and I want to get into kind of, like I said last week, we're in the playoff season for the WWE. This is all leading towards WrestleMania. Um, and there's some big pay-per-views, Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, WrestleMania Night 1 and 2. Do you think we're building towards a CM Punk versus Roman Reigns main event at WrestleMania, where he's beaten Dean Ambrose, he's beaten Seth Rollins, now he has to beat Roman Reigns, and he'll have put the Shield away for good?
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be for me. I think an unexpected match. The whole time I've been thinking about Mania and where they could go with the various main eventers they have. Punk and Roman wasn't the first match that came to mind. But thinking about it the way that you just laid out, yeah, it would make sense. Like he's beaten Moxley, he's beaten formerly Ambrose, he's beaten now Seth Rollins. Roman Reigns is the last guy on that list as far as the Shield because of him kind of being involved with that at the start. Um, and then obviously they've laid the seeds for that already with the whole Survivor Series thing. Um, and then Punk, even when he first came back, mentioned Roman Reigns. Uh, and obviously you have Paul Heyman factor, him owing a favor.
Hmm.
And for all we know, that favor could be, well, my whole time, my dream has been to main event WrestleMania, and I'm calling in the favor. I want to main event WrestleMania against Roman Reigns. Something like that. But there's
Yeah.
definitely, if you really stop and you think about all the different aspects of this, there's definitely a lot of uh, things pointing to that being what they're going to do. Um, so yeah, I mean, it would be very, very, very interesting to see Punk and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania in the main event. It would be a huge, huge draw, I think, for the WWE.
Um, I think back to Roman Reigns versus The Undertaker and how The Undertaker left his hat and his coat in the ring, and it was sort of a transfer of power in my mind. The Undertaker, ceding dominance to the big dog, that this is his yard now. And Roman Reigns has talked about behind the scenes how The Undertaker was a huge mentor to him. And I think, the Roman Reigns is at a point in his career where he's done so much. He's brought so much weight and gravity back to that WWE championship and how important it is with the length of his reign and how many guys he beat, that now he's become a genuine, legitimate attraction where he doesn't need a title. Just his presence and his stature warrants a WrestleMania main event. Um, and like you said, Punk is owed a favor by Paul Heyman. Maybe Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns get The Rock to pull some strings and make that main event happen. Um, there's also rumors right now going around that the Cody Rhodes' opponent at WrestleMania is going to be John Cena. I don't, I know, I think Andrew Zarian, Sean Ross Sapp, and Dave Meltzer have all reported the same thing, that this is what they're building towards. Um, how do you feel about that in general, and what do you think they need to do to make that work if that is their plan?
Uh, well, for one, it would make sense in a way because Cody right now is what to me Cody is what John Cena was in the past when he was the face of the company.
Hmm.
Even though Roman, obviously, as you just said, is a huge attraction, and he's one of those people in the company that doesn't need a title to be a main eventer and to be the what a lot of things in the company revolve around.
Hmm.
Um, Cena facing Cody would be a big match, obviously, for the title. Um, and it could be a thing where, John is kind of like, look, you're the guy now. You're what I was when I was here wrestling every single, every single week, 365 days a year. And it's like, but, you know, are you really the guy? Are you, let's see if you really are worthy of being the face of the WWE.
Hmm.
Because Cena could be like, look, I've had down times in my career. I've been through rough patches, but I didn't leave like you did.
Yeah.
I was here. I stayed through the tough times, and now that's why people are calling me the GOAT. So if you really think that you're, worthy of that mantle, then you need to go through me first. The
Right.
old adage, if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. And for a long time, John Cena was the man. So I mean, I think you could very easily work up a story between those two that would make that match very intriguing.
Hmm.
Um, the one thing though is uh, you figure if you have Cena and Cody, and you have let's say Roman and Punk, and then you have uh, Gunther with the world title. Who does he face? That's another thing you got to figure out. Is Punk going to walk into Mania with the title against Roman? Is it going to be just those two? Where is the world title at in that? Um, Even though, I mean, I don't think it really matters if the world title gets lost in the shuffle. Um, but yeah, it definitely, if they went with Cody and Cena and you have Punk and Reigns, I think it would be good because it would open up the world heavyweight title match for somebody who might, it would really help them to have a world title match to really, add to their stock. Somebody like LA Knight,
Yeah.
somebody like Braun Breaker, somebody who you want to really put them in the big picture. Uh, but yeah, there's definitely ways that you could make that whole situation work.
Um, there's the Elimination Chamber, and the winner of that match is rewarded a title shot at WrestleMania. Um, so Gunter could open the show against the winner of the Elimination Chamber. John Cena could face Gunter. I mean, I think you know we talk about rumors, but really until the day of or the week before the Royal Rumble, I really don't think the WrestleMania picture is crystal clear because, like we found out last year, a lot can happen. CM Punk got hurt, and now everything's changing. And The Rock comes in, and The Rock wants a match against Roman, and the fans kind of take over that situation, and at least that's what we've been told. So I I don't want us to sit here and say that we think this is going to be the WrestleMania main event until the Royal Rumble's finished. But um, with Cena and Cody Rhodes, I guess my last question is: does Randy Orton need to be at the center of that story to really make it interesting, or do you think it can just be babyface versus babyface? Cody Rhodes needs to beat John Cena to prove that not only to prove that he's the man, but um, to assuage John Cena's doubts, like you just said, that I stayed here and you didn't. You're not ready to be the guy that faces all the criticism. That heavy is the head that wears a crown. You're not ready for that. Do you think it can just be that, or do you think we need Randy Orton at the center of this?
No, I don't think Randy has to be involved in it. I mean, you could involve him if they really wanted to. But I don't think Randy has to be, you know, added to it to make this a match of intrigue. I mean, just Cody Rhodes, John Cena, nothing else, for the title, nothing else added to it. That's already an attraction right there.
Sure.
You add in the fact that it's Cena's last WrestleMania. You add in the fact that you could throw in the whole, the old face of the company versus the new face of the company. Just the things between those two without any other people being involved in it would be plenty to make this a WrestleMania worthy match. Um, Anything else like adding Randy to it would just be icing on the cake at that point.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I don't think Randy has to be involved for this to really work.
Um, any other thoughts on Raw's debut on Netflix?
Um, well, I mean, I think we talked about for a lot of the big things that happened, a lot of the big positive things that happened. Um, Obviously, there is one big negative thing that happened that really
Right.
took over the airwaves.
Right, right.
Um, I mean, this was, I mean, I'm talking about Hulk Hogan, him showing up on the show. This was such a big event that you had for everything else that just happened that we talked about with The Rock, Cena, Punk. There were mainstream media outlets talking about Hulk Hogan showing up and getting booed out of the building in LA. And just, for people who didn't see it, Hulk Hogan, it was announced, I don't know, I think maybe a couple days, maybe a few more than that before the show that Hulk Hogan was going to be showing up. Um, it sounded like they wanted Stone Cold Steve Austin to be on the show, but he didn't want to do it. So I guess they added Hulk Hogan. They have this partnership with his beer brand, which I don't know why Hulk Hogan has a beer brand when Stone Cold is synonymous with beer drinking in WWE, but they have a partnership with his beer brand, American Beer. Um, he shows up with Jimmy Hart, and from the jump, as soon as his music hit, the crowd was booing him, and it was very, very audible boos. Like you could hear it clearly through the television. I've watched some live crowd videos of people who were there when it was a lot louder in person. He was not well received, and to the point where he kind of himself, you could see him reacting to the fact he was getting booed.
Yeah.
Um, but he really couldn't pivot away from what he wanted to say. Um, it seemed like they kind of rushed it to get him out of there. Um, but yeah, it was. it was really, really awkward, really embarrassing. I don't think it was, it was unexpected, but I mean, if you're really kind of paying attention to how Hulk Hogan, who he is, what he's done over the past however many years, it wasn't surprising. But what were your thoughts on the entire Hulk Hogan situation?
It's so interesting seeing him. I guess when we were kids, he had just come back to the WWE and he was, briefly he was Hollywood Hulk Hogan and then he went back to the Real American, Malibu Hulk Hogan and was kind of the living legend and he played that role for a little while and then, he was in TNA and he basically, I mean, him and Eric Bischoff ruined TNA. I think anyone who was a fan of TNA, and not that I was a big fan of TNA, but, you know, I mean, they ruined TNA and he buried talent and you know, I think they kind of expected him to rear it in the right direction, and he proved that he doesn't know what he's doing. And obviously, of all the controversy, him expressing his political leanings, and to your point about Stone Cold and having a beer company, is it just me or like over the last 10 years, has he tried to like take shots at Stone Cold Steve Austin? Like, he wears a John 316 shirts. He's got a beer brand when he doesn't drink beer. Um, Very famously at WrestleMania 30, he had that weird moment where like they threw him the beer and he like fake drank it and like acted awkward with it. And it's like, I don't know. The Undertaker came out and obviously he had Donald Trump on his podcast. And, people are saying, oh, it's because Hulk Hogan was in Los Angeles and it's a predominantly, liberal city and they didn't boo Undertaker. So, like, clearly it's just that Hulk Hogan is a pathological liar, and people are really tired of his shit. I mean, people are really tired of this guy's shit. They're tired of seeing him. I saw Jimmy Hart, and it's like, what they dug him up to come out. He's 80 years old. Like
Yeah,
Hulk Hogan, 70. We don't care. Like
yeah,
you left off the women's Intercontinental Championship match. You didn't have Penta debut with Rey Mysterio. Basically, to have this segment, it seemed like this was announced the day of the show
yeah, dude.
to have this segment with, and I'm glad you mentioned this because I almost forgot about it.
Yeah,
Don't let him come back ever again.
yeah,
Like he has this mentality that like, I think he said a month or two ago that wrestling fans forgive. They forgave Chris Benoit. And it's like, are you crazy?
yeah,
They don't forget. They're not going to forgive you. You've never apologized for anything you've ever done. You
yeah,
continue to lie about the dumbest stuff possible.
yeah,
Um, this guy's just the most fugazi, disingenuine, uh, self-absorbed carny in the wrestling business.
yeah.
I don't know who I wonder if Triple H. I wonder if this was a prerogative of Netflix or Triple H in the WWE.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who thought this was a good idea because obviously the first thing people talked about, having just come off an election season, was like, oh, it's because he supported Donald Trump and they were in a very, very liberal city. But like you said, Undertaker, he didn't get booed; he got cheered, and he had Trump on his podcast, talked to him. Maybe he's made his political beliefs pretty clear. But yeah, it's the fact that Hulk Hogan is just a piece of shit human being. He's obviously he's had racist remarks come out. He said, obviously the pathological liar thing that's been going on for a long time now. Um, and yeah, he's just from the time with TNA where he, like you said, he buried talent. It's kind of it's become a meme at this point that he buried talent over there. Um, and yeah, people just don't like him. He's not a likable person. Um, and it's just the fact that they thought this was a good idea. And then you get into the fact that a lot of the people who watched Hulk Hogan and liked Hulk Hogan don't watch wrestling anymore.
Yeah.
The newer generation of fans, they know who Undertaker is. They know who The Rock is. They grew up with Undertaker. They grew up with John Cena. Like talking about the older guys. Hulk Hogan. Like you said, he's been in wrestling for 40 years, but the last, what, decade plus have been nothing but bad press for him.
Yeah.
Everything he's been involved with, everything he's talked about, has been in a negative light. And yeah, it's just people are tired of it. And I think they really found out on this show when he got absolutely when fucking Macaulay Culkin got a bigger pop than Hulk Hogan did. Um, you know, like it was ridiculous, man. I don't understand why they keep bringing him out. Like, it gets to a point where people just they don't either someone is so old in the wrestling that they don't know them legitimately. Like, there's nothing negative about them. They just don't know who they are. Or you're someone like Hogan who has had so much bad publicity and so many negative things said about him and talked about with him. Um, even just like back when he was still wrestling, and you've heard guys since then have talked about it, like shoot interviews, about how much of a piece of shit human being he was
Yeah.
back when he was in WCW. You've heard Bret Hart talk about how much of an asshole Hogan was back when they were in the WWF. Just a lot of bad things have come out about Hulk Hogan, and to the point where yeah, people are just they're tired of him. They don't want to see him anymore. They're tired of the BS. It's like now you're partnering up with him for a beer brand.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, it's crazy that they thought that would work. But
Yeah, if OJ Simpson were in the crowd with a pair of gloves on, I think he would have gotten a better reaction than Hulk Hogan. He 20 years ago he was the living legend. Like he was the guy you bring back to Papa rating. That was 20 years ago. Now that guy is The Rock or John Cena even or Stone Cold Steve Austin. Hulk Hogan was in his prime 40 years ago, literally 40 years ago. He
yeah,
was in the middle of his WWE championship run. Um, I just, I know that, we're kind of celebrating the 40th anniversary of the first WrestleMania. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Just pretend like it wasn't 40 years ago
yeah,
because I wouldn't bring him back out. Listen, I think his promo was supposed to be longer.
yeah,
It definitely seemed like he was rushing it and then just kind of stopped because he realized like this isn't working.
yeah.
And I feel bad for Jimmy Hart, who like one of the all-time great managers, and he had to go out there and I mean, like, I don't think he anticipated getting heat at 80 years old, but he
No.
did.
Well, I mean, it wasn't obviously a direct at Jimmy Hart.
No,
It
but
was
he
it was
was,
at Hulk Hogan. Yeah, him having to
yeah,
be there and stand there with the American flag in his hand and get absolutely booed out of the building to the point where like Jimmy Hart, I think, is for all accounts, is one of like the nicest guys in the wrestling business.
yeah,
So yeah, just to for him to have to stand there and deal with that, I felt really bad for him. Obviously, like you say, he's 80 years old. You know, doesn't want to come out there. And also, too, going with Hogan, like Jimmy Hart's 80 years old. He's, I believe, like 10 years older than Hulk Hogan. And if you would have told me that he was 20 years younger than Hulk Hogan, I would believe it because
yeah,
Hogan, like, I mean, my God, man, like he can't walk. Like he's just, like he looks crippled, man. Like you add that in with the fact that you have this guy who can barely walk. He goes out there and he cuts the same promo he's been cutting for just since we were kids,
yeah,
back when he went back to the, eat your vitamin, say your prayers, Hulk Hogan gimmick. Uh, it's just like it's old news, man. Like,
yeah,
it was great for the time, but now just you need to stop. Like, it's you're not popular to the level of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
yeah.
And maybe he is resentful of that because imagine if Stone Cold had come out on that show,
Oh my God. Oh, they would
monster
have went
pop.
nuclear. Yeah,
Yeah, they would have went absolutely insane if Stone Cold had come out there. Um, but yeah, he's not to that level anymore. Um, and like I said, I believe it had more to do with the negative press and publicity that he's gotten over the course of the last whatever 10 to 15 years, where he's
yeah,
just you've had, like you said, the pathological liar, him just lying about stuff that is easy to see he's lying about it.
yeah,
Like, and I'm not going to rehash everything, but it's stuff that people can very easily say he's lying.
yeah,
And people are just tired of that. That obviously he's had the racial stuff come out that I don't believe he's ever apologized for. Um, even to a point, I think Mark Henry made a point of saying that he tried to help him with that. Hulk Hogan said no.
Yeah.
So, it's just, yeah, it's just all of that. You put all that together and you get what you got last night, where it's just fans are tired of Hulk Hogan, don't want him any, you know, is what probably has come out that said that um, obviously Hogan was disappointed by the reaction, but do like a heel type thing, but we'll see. But it was funny to watch.
Um, on Dynamite, well, Raw, you had The Rock, John Cena, Hulk Hogan. On Dynamite, you had Jeff Jarrett, Adam Copeland. Chris Jericho was, billed to be on the next show, although he wasn't actively on the show. I know we just celebrated a new year, but what year is it, Jordan? Because you have so many guys that are over, pushing 50 or well over 50 years old. Uh, you know, it's hard, it's crazy how many old guys are in wrestling, are still involved in the business right now. When you have so many legitimate stars. I know we're getting into streaming and we're trying to introduce wrestling to new fans, but um, it just is a hell of a week of wrestling. Um, I'm glad you brought up Hulk Hogan,
Yeah.
but yeah, on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, what would you give Raw this week?
I would give it probably. I It's hard for me to say. I think I would give it like 3 and 3/4.
Three and three
It
quarters. Okay.
wasn't, yeah, it wasn't crazy. Nothing surprising happened, but you had a lot of star power. Um, you had a title change. Um, but yeah, it wasn't this grandiose, spectacular show like I thought it was going to be. But it was an above average Raw for sure. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say it was a great show.
Yeah, 3 and 3/4 is very fair. I don't think it was very good, but it was definitely good. There were some great matches for the standard of Monday Night Raw and WWE television. There were some really good matches and a lot of star power. And you know, we didn't really touch on the Undertaker much, but he was on the show and had that moment with Rhea Ripley. That was really, I don't know. I don't want to say it's really special. It was kind of, you know, I wish he would show up and speak. I wish he cut a promo or like say something to someone, but it's always he's throwing up the hand, or he's whispering something in someone's ear, or he's got a motorcycle, and I
Yeah,
don't know. Anyways, but because clearly he loves talking on his podcast. He loves just all of a sudden now he's got so much to say. But
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to get off topic with this, but I mean, you got to think. I mean, he stayed in character and he didn't say hardly really anything for his entire wrestling career.
yeah,
And you get into the era now where everybody has a podcast, everybody's talking about stuff, and you have wrestling fans who like to hear that stuff. They like to hear about the old stories from the guys who were on the road back in the territory days and back in the early WWE days. They like hearing that stuff, and he's got a whole career's worth of stories that he never got to tell because he was kayfabing. So
yeah. I wish they would like market his return and he'd come out and like challenge someone to like not like to a match, but to be the star that he was, or to I don't know, just to have more edge. You know what I mean? Like I wish he'd come out and have a moment with someone where he was giving them advice and still being that locker room leader in a way, even from a distance. But seeing him ride around on his motorcycle, that's all fun and games. But
yeah,
um, I think this was a really great episode. Thank you once again, Jordan. Please, like I said, follow us on Twitter, Blue Sky, like the video, leave a comment, let us know what you thought about Raw on Netflix's debut. Hulk Hogan's return, The Rock's return, John Cena's retirement tour, and the matches. I don't think we really emphasized this enough. The matches were really great on this episode. This was way better than most matches are, or these matches were a lot better than they usually are on Raw. So let us know what you thought about that, and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see you come back next week. And we will be back next week discussing, you know, kind of moving away from contemporary topics. 2024 was the end of the first half of this decade. We're going to talk about our favorite matches of the decade so far. WWE, AEW, New Japan, wherever, regardless of promotion. We've been doing our homework. We've watched a lot of wrestling in the last 2 months to prepare for this episode, and I think it's going to be a good one. But once again, thank you guys for watching. Talk to him, Jordan.
Top dogs out.